Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who ruled well. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of the video is No Deal Will Happen with Russia or Iran. And ultimately, this is just a little bit of happenings right in the news, things taking place. People are still, trying to see if, Donald Trump, Neo 47, is serious, right, about making a deal. And pretty much the answer is no. All right, let me grab this. This is First Thessalonians 5 and 3. It says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as to dwell upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." All right, and usually that's what happens. They talk about peace and they talk about safety, and what comes after that is war. You know,
And when you do your job, the adversaries know what's coming for them. And that's when they either step up and meet the fury of the American military or back down, and you create a whole bunch of options for America and the president with what he wants to execute on behalf of the American people. So right now, hey, Iran has a choice. Meet at the table with the president and give up their nuclear program. And as the president said, I'm lost on time, 2 days ago now, in the cabinet meeting, sit right next to him. He looks in the camera and says, well, Iran can either do it the right way with a deal across the table, or they can deal with my guy on the left. That happens to be me. But it's not me, it's you guys. It's what you're ready to do. And when
It's what you're ready to do in case, of course, there is no agreement. But in essence, Pete Hegseth is preparing the American army for a potential attack against Iran. So is there a prospect of that deal working? Technically, there was a deal there between the American side and Iran that the United States unilaterally withdrew from under Donald Trump following the request of Israel and following Israeli pressure. So that is a possibility. However, based on the recent escalations that happened between the United States and Iran by and following the pressure of the Israelis and the Israeli lobby in the United States, including war hawks in Trump's administration, that proved that everything is still fragile. At the end of the day, there's a ceasefire. That ceasefire wasn't a smooth ceasefire. There were breaches, there were skirmishes. The United States constantly breached and tried to stretch its boundaries. Israel still operates and tries to sabotage with its own operations against Iran. Multiple orbit drones were downed in Iran. At one point, the Israelis tried to stir more problems through the UAE and had these false flag attacks that came from multiple parts of the Gulf states, especially after the revelation that they had a secret base inside of Iraq. Knowing that and considering the fact that Israel has the biggest influence on the American president, the Israeli firsters and the Israeli lobby is the biggest donor of Donald Trump. He has over 200 million from them. That is the main thing to consider in everything that happens with Iran. The fact that he's trying to talk with the Arab countries about having a deal with Israel if they want to have peace with Iran. Again, the ridiculousness of this all when he is tying the relationship of two other countries with his own peace deal or so-called peace deal with Iran. The days are coming. Time will tell if he is serious, or is this just another trick from Donald Trump to deceive the Iranians, put them on their back feet and shock them with another attack, either in the form of another.
right. I'm gonna continue playing it. It's almost done, but we know that the small hatters, all right, Jeremiah 50, are dragging America into this war. Jeremiah 15:45, therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord Yahweh Bashar that he have taken against Babylon and his purposes that he have proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Right? Israel is going all out. When this guy was speaking, all you heard was the Abraham. Well, he was talking. So Donald Trump told like these other countries that they wanted peace or something like that with Iran, that they will have to join the Abraham Accord, right? And then even maybe hopefully even Iran could join it, and that goes back to Israel, right? Donald Trump trying to make peace, and he says Israel is sabotaging and striking Iran. They try to make peace with one nation or country, and Israel strikes the other one, like it's Lebanon, right? It's Gaza, it's Iran. At one point they're all getting attacked from Israel, while America is trying to figure this out, and that's because the problem is Israel drawing them out. Scripture say it says at least the flood, which is talking about the 1948ers, right? Will draw them out, right? Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So ultimately, America is going to be destroyed along with Israel, or Israel is going to be destroyed right along with America, right? Because Israel is the problem. All right. Let me get some of this regarding the Iran situation. It says Trump actions show he is not interested in negotiations. It says by continuing the naval blockade of Iran and putting forward excessive demands, U.S. President Donald Trump is clearly demonstrating that he is not interested in negotiations with Tehran. Military advisor to Iran Supreme Leader Mohsen said. So by continuing the naval blockade and making excessive demands and negotiations, he has once again proven that he is not inclined toward negotiation and is pursuing other objectives. All right. Just earlier, because it's not talking about negotiations while still blocking Iran. Right, because the whole thing is to cripple Iran, stop Iran. That's why the whole time they've been under sanctions, and American Israel has been trying to cripple their economy for the longest, which they succeeded. But Iran is able to make the money because of the oil. Now, right earlier, the New York Times reported that Trump has not yet made a decision regarding a possible no agreement with Iran, although the U.S. president said on Friday that most provisions of a deal with Tehran had already been agreed upon, which is all lies. Says Trump still undecided about deal with Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump has not yet made a decision on whether to sign off on the deal with Iran, the New York Times reported. Says according to the newspaper, the matter was considered at a meeting at the White House Situation Room that lasted around 2 hours. However, the president didn't make a final decision following it. All right, and this is leading to a war, right? And it's leading to World War III. So check this part out. It says Iran demands immediate return of $12 billion to continue negotiations. All right. It said the return of $12 billion from Iran's immobilized assets in Tehran's vital precondition is Tehran's vital precondition for continuing of dialogue with the United States. The most important part of the agreement, which U.S. President Donald Trump failed to mention, is the immediate return of $12 billion from Iran's frozen assets. Now, I don't know if Israel is going to allow that thing to happen. Says that because you're fighting for Israel, right? Israel is determining what's okay and what's not okay. Said the agency quoted a source as saying, in line with the text of the agreement, this sum must be paid immediately, and until the payment is made, Iran will not enter further talk. So unless Donald Trump pay up his money, it won't be any talks. It says Trump said he planned to make the final decision on the future of a potential deal with Iran during a meeting with his advisors later in the day. In his words, the majority of provisions of a draft U.S.-Iranian memorandum of understanding have already been agreed. I just wanted to a letter. All right. So that's the Iran part. So as you can see, no deal with this situation is being made. Get Isaiah here. We get into the Medes. Again, talking about a deal, Isaiah 13 and 17 said, behold, I will stir up Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they will not delight in it. So won't be no deal made with Russia either. Right, and things are happening with Russia, which you're gonna get into these two articles. Right, it says their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, and the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when Yahweh Bashmiel overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Fire and brimstone. So the same is gonna happen with these nuclear warheads to America and to Israel, right? It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be brought in from generation to generation. So America, he's talking about America. He says, neither shall the Arabian tick there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and statues shall dance there. So desert creatures, right? It says, and the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. So we're getting close and close to that day, and they feel it. That's why PXS is getting ready for the war, right? They about to go all out. So now we have this situation with NATO, right? And which the scriptures tell us that these NATO individuals are going to side, with Russia. So we have to see how that plays out, But basically, what's happening right now, and maybe Russia's gonna start just putting it on them, and a deal will be made. That's a deal that can be made, all right? Because the scriptures do say that the 10 horns shall hate the horde and burn her with fire, right? And also, Obadiah 1:7 says America's, friends, trusted friends, will turn and make plans behind their back. So they may go to war, NATO and Russia start hammering their ass, and the deal is going to be made quick. I mean, if you look at Iran, if you look at Ukraine, that's what happened. Ukraine went in, started, beating them up basically, and they was ready to make a deal. And America and NATO came in and said, no, don't make a deal. So here we are now. So that deal will come, once NATO starts feeling it, it's clear as day. But for the time being, it says NATO said the drone that crashed in Romania was of Russian origin. Now, the situation with this is that they're allowing Ukraine to use their airspace basically to send drones at Russia. So Russia has to defend themselves, and this happens sometimes. All right, I've seen multiple accounts so far that it did happen, and that's just what's going to happen, and it's going to keep happening to the point where I guess it might grow bigger and bigger and bigger. To the point where Russia actually does something about this. NATO allowing Ukraine to use their airspace to attack Russia, but when Russia tries to defend itself, they're saying, "Oh, what are you doing?" So that's what's happening with this. So the drone that crashed in Romania was of Russian origin. A router says, citing a spokesman for NATO Supreme Headquarters. Says according to the spokesman, NATO is considering how to improve NATO countries' defense against drones. Russian President Vladimir Putin said earlier that an incident involving a UAV in Romania was most likely caused by a Ukrainian drone. And he said that because they allowed the Ukraine to use the airspace. Says he recalled Ukrainian drones have previously entered the airspace of various countries, and most likely that this is the same situation. Says he stressed that Russia is ready to conduct an impartial investigation if the wreckage of the drone that crashed in Romania is handed over to it, and it will be possible to say what happened only after such a probe. No one can say for sure where a drone was manufactured before this aerial vehicle is examined by experts, Putin stressed. Since recalling that Moscow had handed over to Washington fragments of drones that tried to attack his residence along with information about them. So he pointed out to the fact that he remembers the fact that a drone tried to attack his residence, and it was handed over to Washington for some reason. So going back to America, all right, it says earlier the Romanian Defense Ministry said that a drone crashed. And remember what Trump was saying? He was saying, well, you do that, it's too soon or something like that, when the incident happened. All right. It says earlier the Romanian Defense Ministry said that a drone crashed onto the roof of an apartment building in the city Galati, right? And they blame Russia for that. And yeah, you're gonna keep blaming Russia because you're gonna keep having problems with you know, allowing Ukraine to use your airspace, and then that you're just gonna have those problems. All right. So Romania uses UAV incident for confrontation as part of NATO EU playbook. Romania exploited the incident with a falling drone to implement NATO and the EU's foreign policy course toward confrontation with Russia, the Russian embassy to, you know, they told the guy. It says Romania openly follows the EU and NATO foreign policy course toward confrontation with Russia. And judging from how things developed today on Friday, it used the incident as a pretext to implement a prearranged decision. Says in the interview with TASS earlier, Russia ambassador to Bucharest, Vladimir Lipayev, called the Romanian drone incident a provocation by the Kyiv regime, which he said is doing everything it can to drag NATO into a war with Russia, and this district attention from what he described as a barbaric Ukrainian crime, right? Referring to the May 22 attack on a college there that killed 21 students. The Romanian Defense Ministry reported that a drone crashed onto the roof of an apartment building in Galita, right? Bucharest blamed the incident on Russia. He said it was most likely caused by a Ukrainian drone. He said there has already been instances of Ukrainian drones hitting Europe countries. Russia is ready to conduct an investigation. Only to hand it over. And then we can know what really happened. All right. And ultimately, you know, Putin ain't playing, you know, playing around basically with bullshit. All right. You know exactly what's going on. I put this, I said, no deal will happen with Russia or Iran. He said your assessment matches the current diplomatic reality. As tentative ceasefire agreements and proposed new memorandums, right, which is just documentation, right, with Iran remain stalled. President Donald Trump's Situation Room meetings with national security advisors have concluded without an approved or signed agreement. So where we headed? We're headed to war, which we're already at war, right? But they was trying to stop it, but there's no stopping this. There's no healing of the wound, right? America has already lost so much power. They give up now, they basically lose everything. They won't have that global control or anything like that, you know? So the nuclear demands, the straight up, they don't want no nuclear enrichment. Straight up morals needs to be open and to roll back the tolls. No one needs to pay for it. Right, that's what Trump wants. Says ceasefire friction, despite the existence of a fragile ceasefire, military exchanges and skirmishes continue. Said regarding Russia, no formal negotiations for a U.S. deal are actively underway. Instead, Russia and Iran have strengthened their bilateral alliance through treaties and military cooperation. Yeah, you know, Russia is sending, you know, funds and weaponry to Iran, so it's China, right? So you can clearly see what's happening and what sides are, you know, who belongs to each side already. Right, this is World War III, and it's only going to intensify, and no deals, right, will be made. Right, America already has lost. All right, right now what they're trying to do is save themselves. But Nahum 3:19, you know, goes to the fact that they're not going to save themselves. All right. Nahum, and then you can get a 51:9, Jeremiah 51:9 says, Nahum 3:19 says, there's no healing of that bruise, that wound is grievous, all that hit and bruise, he shall clamp the pains over thee, for upon whom have not that wickedness passed continually. All right. Says Jeremiah 51:7, Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. that made all the earth drunken. Did not America run and control the world, right? And made all nations basically bow and follow after her. The nations have drunken of her wine, her laws, philosophy, things like that. Therefore, the nations are mad because it was all bullshit. Right now, the might is white, right? Might is right. Law of the jungle and things like that are taking place. All right. Hell is breaking loose. They got the dollar, they tied to the dollar, petrodollar, the economy is crashing. All right. America messing up the economy right now. Babylon is suddenly falling and destroyed. How for her to take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. Says you have healed Babylon, but she is not healed, forsake her. Let us go everyone into his own country for a judgment reaching unto heaven and lifted up even to the sky. So the Most High Yahweh Bashman Shai got this thing. All right, it's on lock. And pretty much it's over. Right, it's done for America. All right, Lord willing, you will edify from the blessing. Shalom to you, the hope of elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.